I'm Tony Moriarty. I'm VP of Data Science at Deckard Technologies, and we're a PropTech/GovTech firm which gathers data and creates insights so that local government can see what's happening with the property in their communities. Rentalscape is our product for monitoring short-term rentals, such as your Airbnbs, your Stayz.com, that kind of stuff. Local government's really interested in this because short-term rentals, it's been alleged that they are causing or contributing to Australia's housing problem. Rentalscape employs more than 15 AI models, and this is everything from trying to deduce from calendar activity whether we believe there's been a booking on the property, to trying to deduce the address of the property, to other things such as prediction of revenue and looking at what we believe is going to happen with a given property and therefore a given community in the future. Historically in government, humans would have been making all the decisions, and we're getting to the point now where an AI can do it much faster and potentially more accurately.
When you think about data in an AI context, we've traditionally had two categories. Public data, so data that is relatively easily accessible to other people and organizations, and private data, data that we would not expect most people to be able to see and definitely would not expect most organizations to be able to see. Now, there have been different degrees of privacy. For example, some data that is private may be accessible by people like the police in certain specific, very well mandated circumstances. Modern artificial intelligence techniques have really muddied the water here because they're able to do things with public data that may really surprise people who aren't familiar with their inner workings. For example, they can infer or extract all sorts of information that you might consider to be relatively private just by processing that public information. And so this whole distinction between what is genuinely private and what is public information has become much more blurred in the age of modern AI.
We use Spark clusters in the cloud to run massively parallel processes. And so really what we do is we try and split the data up geographically. And so each Spark cluster can examine one area, whether it be an area of the US or an area of Australia, and that comes into trillions of data points that our models are trying to examine to work out what we believe is happening in a property on a given day. So we've got multi-stage models that firstly try to reduce the dimensionality of the data, try and come up with the best knowledge of a certain day, to look at when a certain day gets blocked out in the calendar, what the activity was, how far out it was, and how many days may have been blocked out at the same time. But we need to have humans in the loop monitoring what's going on.
Certainly AI has the capability to take over, and address some of those regulatory burdens in crunching structured and unstructured data that comes into our office, basically. But there are certain challenges still remain from our context point of view that we saw. Context understanding is quite important in terms of interpretation of its the legal side of it, the regulatory language.
Dealing with government customers, we have to make sure we're compliant to various standards. We follow the principles of SOC 2, which is a data governance and compliance framework, to make sure that our systems are as secure as possible, that we're treating any PII, any personally identifiable information, with as much care as possible, because our customers would expect nothing less.
It's about the where we are gathering that data, how we are gathering that data, do we have permission to gather that data, are we using the data for the purpose that it was collected in the first place, and are we able to explain the results or the outcomes of that process. And I would like to probably add something that is not discussed as much, but it's starting to be really, really important. And it's not just the explainability of AI, but it's the sustainability of AI. So when we are thinking about automating through AI, and more so if we are thinking about doing that based on big amounts of data, we need to be conscious of the computational power that's required, the storage that's required, the energy consumption that's going to go with that, and the sustainability of it all. Sustainability in terms of sustaining the validity and relevance of the data, but also sustainability of the AI system as such.
We have to make sure that any data that we bring in is run through our pipelines as quickly as possible. To make sure that this process is resilient, we have an immense amount of data monitoring, data pipeline monitoring, making sure that if these data pipelines fail, we've got engineers that can go look at them pretty much immediately. The ultimate goal there is to equip local governments with the knowledge of how property is being used in their community, whether a given property is sitting empty, whether it's long-term rented, short-term rented, and potentially, if it's short-term rented, what the revenue is that's going through that property.